Hello and welcome, I'm Kira the Scrivener, and today we are going to be going over the mid-year Freakout tag. So this is not going to be in a very in-depth video. I have read 99 books and I am halfway through Truthwitch, which will be my 100th book of the year, which I'm really excited for. It is currently like June 30th at like 2 a.m. in the morning, so I am going to finish Truthwitch and have 100 books in the first 6 months, which will be really exciting. So I'll do statistics, I'll do goal wrap-up later on. I want to be unconventional, and I'll probably do some wrap-ups of like my favorites and most surprising and disappointed halfway through, because I found that a little overwhelming at the end of last year. I found wrap-ups themselves overwhelming because I've been reading so much, so I haven't done a lot of those. So I just want to kind of do some overall videos. These are just going to be a general overview of the answers that will be more in depth in later videos, so enjoy. So first of all, we have the best book of the year. And this is going to actually go to The Gilded Wolves by Roxany Stocksy. And this was one of my very first reads of the year. It came out in January and I read it the day of release. Like literally I got it at midnight and then read it within like the first 12 hours. And it was incredible. I think that the plot lacks in some ways, and so does the world building, and I think that's why a lot of times people aren't a huge fan of it. But the characterization, the representation, and the characters' development throughout it is just incredibly wonderful, as well as just the writing style and the quotations and discussion of the world at the time and of representation and what it means. Almost all the characters are either queer or biracial or of a minority in some different way, and I think that that conversation was incredibly done. It is historical fantasy set in 1899 as well, and just please read it. It's really good. And then Nevermoor by Jessica Townsend is the story of Morgan Crow, and it is so amazing. It is a girl who is cursed to die on her 11th birthday, and instead she gets kidnapped and gets to go to this like tryouts for this magical school, and the world building is incredible. I didn't read Harry Potter until I was older, but I did get the experience of having it feel nostalgic despite the fact that I'm reading it for the first time, and this is kind of how it was. It made me fall in love with middle grade as a genre because it is just so incredible and well fleshed out, and just everything is just weird and wacky and quirky, and I adore it, and it makes fun of itself. It's so sarcastic and I just love it so much. And then we are going to go to best sequels of 2019, and this is a long list, and I'm going to do my best to talk about fast. And first we have A Torch Against the Night by Sabat Tahir. I was really surprised that I liked An Ember in the Ashes so much because it was marketed as a lot of things that I wasn't sure I was going to love, but I really do love the rich world and the writing is incredible. I really like Laia as a main character because I like strong female characters, but I don't like them when they're often very brash, and she is very quiet and doesn't believe herself to be brave, but she shows a lot of like quiet feminism, which I really adore. Elias is a really good character, so is Helene, and Helene really comes through to her own in this, has a lot of moral questions. It is one of the bloodiest YA fantasies I've ever read, which I really adore, and it just really gets into the world and has a lot of twists and turns, which I also really adore. And then we have In an Absence Dream by Sheenan McGuire, and this is the fourth book in the Wayward Children series, and I feel like Sheenan McGuire has become better and better at every single one of these. I've liked progressively better, although Beneath a Sugar Sky and Down Among the Sticks and Bones might be tied in likeness. They're just all really good, and this one is about Lundy, and I love her as a character because she's very practical, and I relate to a lot of her beliefs on there. Like I'm a little bit more whimsical, but I have definitely a really practical side in me, and I just love the way that she has time jumps and the discussion of like duty and world, and a lot of talk about feminism because it's set in the 60s and what women have, and I just really love the story, and the Goblet Market was so cool and amazing. And then we have The Ship of the Dead, and this is the third book in Magnus Chase and the conclusion by Rick Riordan, and it was so good. I'm reading Heroes of Olympus, and I know Margaret and Kenzie will probably kill me for this, but I'm not loving it that much because I don't think that Rick Riordan can write third person with multiple points of view so well, but he can write conclusive stories, and This one just opens up the fact that from Magnus's point of view, he's able to conclude the points of views for all of these characters and weave them together so magically and connect all of those threads with such a world building. And I really liked the subvertedness of an action hero because Magnus himself isn't very much of an action hero, so the conclusion of the story felt very natural to him, and it has great representation as well as a lot of discussion around faith and the Muslim faith. This one included a lot of conversations about religion and fasting, which I know she's very brave, Samira is, throughout this book while dealing with it, and I know the struggles of when you're not on a quest, because one of my best friends is Muslim and she fasts every single year, and I know what toll that takes on her, so I thought that was really cool, as well as Alex being non-binary and switching in between male and female, and the representation of that is also really cool. The Raven King, just the Raven cycle as a whole, I read the first one in 2017, and then I've read the last 3, and they're really, really good. They're whimsical and amazing, and I love that they switch from different points of views, and again, a lot of subverted things. I'll talk about it more later, and I'm probably going to reread them before Call of the Hawk anyways, so there'll be more of that. And then Only Human, I've ranted about this before, but Sylvain Duval can write a story and talk about ethics so well, and this book was so incredible, and he's Canadian. And okay, new releases that I haven't read yet, and Peace and Turmoil by Elliot Brooks. She's another booktuber that I adore, and I know I'm going to enjoy this book. My only issue is that I'm Canadian, so with the exchange rate, the book is like $50 plus shipping, so it might be a while, but I do really want to read it. And then we have Middlegame. This is incredible. I read the first like 15 pages by Shane McGuire as well, and it deals with alchemy and identity and like making people, and I'm just really excited to see where this story goes. And then Priory the Orange Tree, this I know is also going to be probably a book that I absolutely love. It's 900 pages and I can't afford it again because it's really expensive because hardcover, massive book. So I'm reading from the library so I can only read sections at a time, but I know that it's going to be really well written, and the fact that it has 24 pages of like who everyone is in the back just makes me feel magical inside. Okay, most anticipated. So for non-sequel, new to me author, the most anticipated release will be Gods of Jade and Shadow, and this is an August release that deals with Latinx Mexican mythology set in 1920s, and that sounds incredible. Then I also have Supernova. I read the first 70 pages via sampler. It is incredible. It's Conclusion of the Renegades from Marissa Meyer. We have The Toll by Neil Shusterman. I don't buy new releases, but this is a new release. Like, my heart is thumping at the thought of reading this. I'm getting ready for rereading the first 2. Darkdawn by Jade Kristoff. I can talk. This is the conclusion of the Nevernight series, also really hyped for this. And the Guinevere Deception is a new series that is starting by Kirsten White, and she does such a great job at reinventing history and telling the stories of powerful women, and I am sure that she's going to knock this out of the park, so I'm really excited for this as well. And then we have Most Disappointed, it's a less happy thing, and this is, we have the Umbrella Academy, and this is a graphic novel that I was really excited for because I love the TV show. The graphic novel does not at all measure up whatsoever, like no character development, like very confusing, not explained anything. And then we have Kingdom of the Burning Phoenix by Julie C. Dow. This was a less disappointed in general. I don't think it's a bad book. It's just the first one was very dark and followed the Evil Queen. This one followed Snow White, and I was expecting it to be still a little bit darker, and she's quite young and naive, and it did have its high moments. It just was not a book that was very memorable for me. And then we have Crown of Feathers by wonderful Canadian author Nikki Pau-Prito, I think. And this, I just couldn't connect it. It's about Phoenix Riders. I thought it would be really cool. Girl dressing up as a boy. All of that. I just couldn't connect with it. It's her first novel, so I think that she might grow into her writing style and writing characters a little bit better, but I'm willing to give her another try. And then we have Internment by Samir Ahmad. This is dealing with a lot of Islamophobia, and I want to do a review and kind of more discussion about it. It just has been putting off because I think that this is a very important topic. I just think that the way that her execution of it wasn't the greatest. So I was kind of disappointed by that. And then we have Biggest Surprise, Elizabeth in Her Garden by Elizabeth von Arnim. This is a late 18th century, or 1896 or something, and it has a lot to do with feminism, and it's a gardening woman and mental health, and it's like very low key though. It's just diary entries, and it's fictional, and just discussion of her life, and through that a lot of things are wonderful, and it kind of makes you happy and also sad, but it's just a wonderful short read, and I really recommend it if you want an underhyped classic book. I Am Messenger, this was a massive surprise. I almost DNF'd it for a year, and then I was like, I finally put it through it because you guys voted for me to read it, and I was really surprised. I don't necessarily agree with everything that happened, but I think that it is a really cool thing about what happened in the end that I'm not going to say, and that he's purposely unlikable, which is why it's so hard to get through the beginning. And then we have the Rook. I had this on my TBR forever because I knew Superpower really, really likes it, and I wasn't expecting to love it, but I was like, I'll check it out because she loves it so much, and we kind of like similar things depending on things. Really, our things aren't always the same, but they can be. But yeah, it is really good, and it is very fresh. It doesn't feel very trope-filled, which is really nice. And it's just a mystery and science fiction and fantasy and all of these things mixed together. It's an adult novel and paranormal as well, and it's just really low-key and sarcastic and dry humor, and I adore it. And then Daisy Jones and the Six, I know this is really hyped. That's kind of why I read it, because I was like, can't help but, read it. I might be interested. It's a sad novel, which is nice. I'm not normally a huge fan of historical fiction. I used to be, but I find that romance is normally way too over the top in it, and I just don't like it. But especially later 20th century, not normally a thing, but this talks a lot about fame, which is something that I'm very interested in, and I think the discussion is really well. And I have Evelyn and Hugo over on my floor there, so I'm planning on reading it from the library soon-ish. And then we have favorite new author. This would definitely be Jessica Townsend, Head Down. Her novel is so incredible, and I can't wait for her to read many more. She says that she has ideas for 10 different novels in the Nevermoor series, and I'm just really excited. I hope she reads and writes so many more. So I'm really excited. New crush, Enrique from Gilded Wolves. I'm not a huge crush, but I think that I would have a crush on him if I met him in real life. I don't really have a crush on the book character. That's never really something that's manifested in me. But he's really great. He's a nerd. He's Filipino, Spanish, and he has a lot of discussion about having a white father and claiming that heritage versus claiming his Filipino heritage, and it's just really cool. He's a lover of history and a nerd, but he doesn't fall into a lot of the tropes of the awkward nerd thing, which I really like. I feel like we would get along really, really well. And yeah, newest favorite characters, just all the Gilded Wolf characters and all. I just love them so much, and they're so fleshed out, and they seem very, very human, which I really like, and I could do many videos on all of their characters. And then we have Helen Aquila, and she's amazing. She is from An Ember in the Ashes series, and I love the moral complexity. I just love her characters a lot. It's all spoiler to talk about who she is as a person, but she's really, really incredible, and I know that's not an unpopular belief at all. Everyone kind of loves her. And then we have Homer Swift, and this is an underdog pick. This is from Nevermoor, and he is not even he's in 2 chapters. But Homer Swift is Hawthorne Swift's younger brother, or older brother. He's 15, and he's, goes to a fair with Morgan in the second book, and he goes to a temple school, and he's taken a vow of silence, and he can only talk 1 day a year, which is incredible. A lot of self-resilience, self-discipline there, and yeah. But you expect him to be super serious and everything because of that. But no, he's just this sarcastic dude that just writes the most sarcastic thing on his whiteboard, and I adore it. It's wonderful. And then we have books that made you cry. So this is going to be the depressing part. A Large Expanse of Sea by Hatera Mafi. This book makes me cry every time. Just saying it, I can feel the wells in my eyes. When I was writing out the name, I got teary. When I did the review, wrap-up, I was almost crying. This book deals with 2002, and it's based largely on her own experience of being a Muslim hijabi girl in America after 9/11 happened, and it is a really emotional ride, and the things that happen in here are horrific, and I think in many ways these are things that still happen very strongly in the US and Canada and in many, many places around the world where Muslims are not the minority, or not the majority. So it's a heartbreaking book that I think is really important to read. The Princess Saves Herself in this one by Amanda Lovelace. This is a poetry collection, the first of hers, and it deals a lot with discussing about abuse and just abuse in general, and for me that made me cry in many, many ways, and the poems really kind of put themselves in my soul in many ways, and yeah, just highly recommend it, although it can be very triggering as well. Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This has to do with the cycle of violence, especially in the Black community where there's so much violence, and yet it's hard to break free of that violence because of the fact of the social norms and culture around that, and like avenging people that are killed and gang life and all of that. And it's a very emotional ride and very short, so you can read it very quickly. Belonging, a new poetry collection of Iranians around the world. This is translated Persian poetry, and there's the cover itself is emotional. It's belonging, but the B is not highlighted and the longing is, like the idea that they're longing for belonging, which is cliche, but it has some really emotional things about the Iranian diaspora around the world, and it's very good. Not every poem was a hit, but many of them were. The Most Beautiful Book that I bought or received this year, this was a new purchase, and I got it at a really cute old thrift shop, and this is A Horse and His Boy by C.S. Lewis, which is one of my favorite books by him. And I just really love this really old cover, and I think it's very, very cute, and I just literally like stare at it every day, and it makes me happy. And then finally, we have books to read by the end of the year, 2019. So I'm not going to put a lot here. There's many books that I have on the list that I'm going to read, but these are the ones I'm going to say. Daughter of the Burning City by Amanda Foody. Her novels are incredible. I just finished King of Fools like 3 or 4 hours ago. It's really amazing. I own this book and I really, really want to read it. Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I've been meaning to read this book for so long and I just need to read it. The same thing with A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, and then The Toll by Neil Shusterman. If I don't read this book like within like a few days of it being published, I will be very, very surprised. Anyways, this is a tag that I feel like everyone does anyways, so I don't need to tag you. If you're a booktuber, please do this tag because it is a fun tag that everyone loves. And I will see you. I'll be doing a lot of books and reviews and things in the future. And happy reading, writing, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.